Hello and welcome back to my channel. Guess what I'm going to do today? I'm doing something totally different than I've done for you before. Normally when you see me, I'm making dog treats, but today I'm going to make some pumpkin bread. So I hope that you will stick with me. If this is your first time being here, please like, comment, and subscribe to join the channel. And if you're a new subscriber, please hit that subscribe button to become a member of the family. So here we go. As I said, this is my first time doing a demonstration of people food. Normally I'm doing dog treats, but I can give you a reason for doing that. And that reason is I am going to Texas to see my son. As you know, I'm retired and I do a lot of different things in retirement. And one of the things that I get to do this weekend is to go see my son. And in talking to him, I asked him if there was anything that I could bring. Do you want me to bring pumpkin bread? Do you want me to bring zucchini bread? Because normally when he comes up, I send him home with something. You know how moms do. You send your kids with something regardless of how old they are. So he said, oh yeah, Mom, you know, the pumpkin bread would be great because I had made that bread for him when he was here at Christmas. And he loved it, and I didn't know that he really, really liked it until I talked to him the other day, and he said, oh, that was so good. So I said, okay, fine, I can do that, and that will be perfect because this recipe makes 2 loaves. So I can take one to him, and I can leave the other here for my husband so he doesn't feel like he has been neglected because he's not going on this trip this particular time. So join me as I make this pumpkin bread. The ingredients for the pumpkin bread are as follows: 4 eggs well beaten, 1 can of pumpkin, 1 scant cup of cooking oil. Now, when I saw this recipe, I did not know what 1 scant meant, but I found out that scant means little less than whatever the amount is. So that's going to be 1 scant cup of cooking oil, 2/3 cup of cold water, 3 1/4 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of soda, 1 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of nutmeg, and 3 scant cups of sugar. Now, this is not my original recipe. I wanted to let everyone know that I got this recipe from a good friend of mine, and I am thankful that she shared it with me. So let's begin. So first what we're going to do is to mix the dry ingredients with the wet ingredients. It's a really easy recipe. And then you also want to flour and oil 2 baking pans. So it's up to you. I flour and oil mine. A lot of times I'll use parchment paper and put some butter in it, but I think that this recipe is going to be rich enough and I don't want to add any additional richness to it because I've got the pumpkin, I've got the oil, and that's going to make it rich enough. So here we go. I'm just going to start adding the dry ingredients first, and then we'll stir them up, and then I will add the combine the wet ingredients, and then we'll combine them together. So here we go. So we're adding flour, the salt, the baking soda, and I'm going to whisk this around. Now, you'll probably notice, I know it's outside of the screen, but you'll probably notice that I did not add the sugar to the dry ingredients because typically in baking, sugar is not considered a dry ingredient. Sugar is considered a wet ingredient. So just remember that when you make this, that you're not going to add the sugar to the dry ingredients. So, oh, I forgot my cinnamon and my nutmeg. all this together. And I like to use the whisk simply because we don't use sifters anymore. The whisk takes the place of the sifter, and I don't know how old you are, but back in the old day, we used to sift the flour, but now we have a whisk, so you don't need to sift, but it just helps to fluff up the flour, take some of the heaviness out of it. All right, so I think that that is mixed up well. Now I'm going to put the wet ingredients together. So we've got the 4 eggs well beaten, and I'm gonna do them again because they have been sitting here a while. So I just wanna make sure that everything is together. So I've got the 4 eggs. Get all of it. And I'm one of those people, I just wanna get everything out of here. So, okay, got the 4 eggs. Got the pumpkin. Now this is a 15-ounce can of pumpkin puree, not pumpkin filler for a pie. This is pumpkin puree. Now, did I tell you guys that I got this recipe from a friend of mine? This is not my original recipe. This is a very good friend of mine. She's from New England, and we had this for Thanksgiving dinner. She invited us over for Thanksgiving dinner. She made this for Thanksgiving dinner, and we absolutely loved it. So I asked her if she would give me the recipe, and she was kind enough to give me the recipe. So I want to give her props. It's not my original. She gave it to me, and I did see it in the cookbook though. But I just wanted to let you know that it's not something that I created. All right, so we've got the eggs, we've got the pumpkin. Let's see, oh yes, the sugar. Now we can put the sugar in, okay? Put the sugar in. And now, different people do this different ways. In other recipes, you add the wet ingredients with the dry ingredients. In the directions for this particular recipe, it says to add the eggs, the pumpkin, and the sugar, then combine it, and then add the oil and the water. But I don't do that. I've done it both ways. I really don't see a difference because if I'm adding the wet with the dry, I want to combine all of my wet first. So I'm going to go ahead, and what I'm going to do is to stir up the pumpkin with the sugar and the get that stirred up real good. So this is the pumpkin, and the sugar, and the eggs. All right, now that that's stirred up, I'm gonna go ahead and add the oil. And I'm gonna stir that up. And then I'm going to add the water. Now, I think this is very liquidy, and I am going to get another whisk because I think that this will do well being whisked together. So I'm back. Okay, so yeah. Oh, much better, much better. You know, when you bake, you bake. Use the same technique in baking. With the eggs, you always let your eggs get to room temperature before you crack and start to use them. And I typically measure everything out in the bowls like you saw. I don't go and just into the bag and scoop and dump. I like to measure everything out so I know that it's an accurate measurement. But that's just me. That's the way I like to do things. Alrighty. Okay, so now what I typically do, so since this is the larger bowl, I'm going to add the flour mixture to it gradually. Now, the first time I made this, I looked at the liquid and I looked at the solid and I said, ooh, this is going to be too liquidy. But I followed the recipe like I've always followed it and it came out fine. It wasn't liquidy at all. So here we go. We're going to add a little bit to it now. I'm going to use a spoon now because I find when you use the whisk with the dry ingredients mixed with the wet, it just gets too sticky and then you end up having to clean off the whisk and that's just too much work. So here we go. I'm going to put half in. Stir it up gently. And you don't really have to be concerned with the gluten factor in this like you would if you were baking a cake. That's not an issue with this recipe. And I really need to do some research and find out why in some recipes it is an issue, the gluten is an issue, and it makes the cake tough, but in other recipes it's not an issue. As I said, I've made this a couple of times, and I've made it this exact way. I don't use a mixer on this one because it's just too easy to put everything in a bowl and mix it all together. All right, so this is pretty much mixed. And I'm going to put another about third in there and mix this up. It smells really good. You can smell the pumpkin. Now, I'm not telling you what brand to use, but when I bake, I like to use the best of every product that I can get. So, you know, if I'm making, for example, chocolate chip cookies, I have a special brand of chocolate chips that I like to get because I really think that it makes a difference. It makes the chocolatey more chocolatier. And when I make, what else is it that I was thinking about? It was something else. What was it that it just came to my mind? Oh, when you have to put vanilla. Most recipes call for vanilla. This recipe didn't call for vanilla, but when you're using vanilla in your recipe, pure vanilla, not the imitation, but the pure and the real vanilla. It makes a difference. Oopsie, I'm being messy. All right, it is coming together. And I guess you could use a mixer on this, but why dirty up the mixer? Why dirty up the beaters when you can just stir this in? All right, and then I'm gonna put the last in, and it's really coming together. It's has a great consistency to it. I'm being a messy Wessie. But that's why you wear an apron. This is so good. Now, as I said, this makes 2 loaves. And you're going to bake it at 350 for an hour. Now, all ovens are different. And typically, my oven takes a little longer than an hour. I have tried doing this 2 ways. The first time I made it, I put both of the loaves in the oven at the same time, and it took a lot longer for both the loaves to cook. The second time I made this, I put one loaf in and then I put the other loaf in afterwards, and it cooked in about an hour. The other thing that I've learned is that this really makes a lot. And the type of loaf pan that you have definitely makes a difference in my opinion. Now, I have two loaf pans. I have this small loaf pan, and then I have a slightly larger loaf pan. Now, in my opinion, this is the better loaf pan because this makes up so much batter that when there's just too much, I think, to put in here and for it to get done all the way through. So what I've started doing is filling up this loaf pan. Then I will put what I can in this loaf pan. I'm not going to fill it to the top. I'm going to fill it maybe to 3/4 the way full, and then I'll put aside the rest of this, and I'll put it in a smaller, what do you call it, individual pie pan, because it's just not worth it when you do all this and you bake it and then you test it in the middle and it's still soft. It's not done, but the rest of the loaf is done. So that is my workaround for the fact that I don't have the same size baking pans. Now, if you have the same size baking pans, that won't be an issue for you, but I've learned that I just cannot make it in two. But it's designed to be two, okay? So, let's see, we have, all right, so I'm going to pour this in. This looks, can you see it? Oh, it looks so good, doesn't it? Oh, see the consistency? It is not soupy. It is an excellent consistency. And it smells so good. So let's go ahead and pour it in. Yum. Delish. Smells delicious. Do the old tappa tappa. And then the second one. See, you know what? This one looks like it may fit. I'm going to see. I may have poured a little more in that one than I normally pour. But yeah, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop because I'm going to get this goodness and put it in a smaller pan, like I said, because I just don't want to take a chance. You are ready to put it in the oven? I will be right back. All right, the oven is at 350, and I'm going to put one in and just bake it one at a time, like I said. So what I do, I normally, if it's an hour, I normally set it for half of the time, or whatever amount of time it has to cook. I set it for half that time, and then I turn my product around, I turn my cake around so it can cook evenly. All ovens cook differently, and I find that if I turn mine around, then it gets an even cook. So I set it for 30 minutes, and I will be back in 30 minutes to turn it around. The cakes are out of the oven. I baked both of them at 350 degrees, and I kept them in the oven for about an hour and 10 minutes. Like I had mentioned before, sometimes the middle doesn't get as done as I would like for it to be. So I cooked them individually and I baked each of them for about an hour and 10 minutes, as I said. So now it's time for the taste test. It's nice and firm, and it's still a little warm. Now, I did put it on the warming rack for about 15 minutes once I took it out of the oven. Smells delicious. And it looks very good inside. It looks all done inside. So I'm just gonna take a little taste because it's dinner time now and I don't wanna spoil my appetite. So I'm just gonna take a little bite. It's still warm. I can taste the contrast of the crust and the meat, the inside. I taste the cinnamon. I taste the nutmeg. It's very good. It's delicious if I say so myself. So, thank you for watching my demonstration, and I look forward to seeing you again when I make something else.